Let's play! Whoa!
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. You all may call me Pharaoh, and welcome back to Let's Play Raging Loop. Last time we left off, it was literally an info dump, like almost 2 hours, and all of it nearly relevant information. The first 20 minutes or so was when we talked to Mamiya-san, and she gave us a little bit more information about possible spider yokai and spider gods, like in our faith, tradition, whatever. And then the majority of the episode was speaking of Kiyanosuke, because this is how we learn more about the feast itself, the origins, and what it really is even now. And it looks to be all a damn setup from the families, more so the Megumis, or Migurumas, whatever the hell. So, wow. Now, but there's still some supernatural crap I don't understand, like, how the hell did, how does, well, the whole looping thing is one, the giant monster, and what about the whole thing about the, in my head, Chiami crumbling? Like, I'm not sure how can you explain that? Either way, we're going back to, darkness. No. Yes, darkness. And we're going to select a trap, because if you guys remember, this is where we were speaking with, Kanzo, and this is like how to kind of spread the malicious seeds around to get them on our side a little bit. Before we talked about Haru's love life. But now, I guess we're just going to go ahead and ask Kanzo about Haru. Let's see what the hell is going to happen here. I assume it's not going to be anything good, but, you know, more information the better, right? I was right. I just remembered. Did my memories carry over in a weird way because the method from back then was weird? Well, then again, this wouldn't be the first time my memories didn't carry over properly. Maybe I should have counted myself lucky for remembering at all. I had tons of things to think about. About the beast in the village, the giant monster, the dream enveloping Fujiyoshi, as well as the looping the sheep had told me about. But this wasn't the time to worry about that. Now, remember, he always says the same thing anytime we went into these, but still. The old man before me was one who'd survived the past tragedies in Fujiyoshi. With the old wolf guy being a pain to talk to, I had to rely on him instead. But how was I supposed to talk to him? It looked like there was just one way. It's me. I'm a wolf. Upon hearing that, "You're a wolf?" He didn't take out his gun. His expression showed nothing but total confusion. I know. From your experience, wolves never reveal themselves. Of course, the humans don't lie, so you can't even imagine why anyone would say something so suicidal. Shut it! He finally pointed his gun at me, but his lateness told me just how hesitant he was. I controlled the pace of the conversation. I reveal this because I'm someone who grew up outside the village. I'm not bound by God's curse. Not yet, anyway. You don't understand? Okay. Well, just keep in mind that the feasts from before were isolated and didn't have any outsiders. Your experience doesn't apply to a feast with outsiders. Don't be so concerned, though. I don't mean any harm. I sat down on the ground, extending my hurting leg forward. Shoot me if you want. Though I'm sure you're aware that a murder without the majority's approval is against the rules, even if it doesn't break the 1 per day law. I confirmed that during my looping with Chiami. Get to the point! There's no point. I just feel bad for you. Huh? I had to apologize to the Kiyori-san and Haru-chan of this timeline. It must be awful for a grandfather to have to kill his granddaughter. I wouldn't want to be the only survivor of such an awful situation. It's too heavy a burden. That's why I came here to talk to you. What'd you just say? It must be awful for a grandfather to have to kill his granddaughter. Oh! He didn't fire, but he sent a solid kick flying at my solar plexus, knocking the wind from my lungs. You're a wolf. You gotta be lying. Well, if that's the case, I wouldn't have revealed myself at all. Well, I understand, though. I'm a wolf, and all I'm saying is true. Then why'd you say it? Will you get it if I say this? If you don't want to kill your granddaughter, kill everyone else. Another kick. It came from my face and hit my head, making me see stars. I'll hang all the wolves, even my granddaughter. Yeah, I thought you'd say that. I don't mind if you choose that. But, are you really sure? I'm putting my life on the line here, and it's only because I want to open up to you. So could you please respond in kind? I just want to understand before I die. That's why I want to ask you something. Specifically, about your experience in a previous feast, and whether you'll sacrifice the laws that have supported you or your granddaughter. Please tell me, Kanzo Makishima-san. I can't trust you. Of course he couldn't. But he couldn't ignore or kill me either. Why not sit down? I can't move right now, we still have time. He silently sat down right before me, cross-legged. The conversation was slow and sporadic. He asked if I and Haruchan really were wolves over and over again. Well, what he was mostly conflicted about was whether or not to harm his granddaughter after all. Thus, I said this. I'm relieved. What? You're actually conflicted about this. Haruchan didn't hesitate to murder the moment she became a wolf. Really? Yes. Kiyori-san too. I was against it. I almost died because of it. Anyone who becomes a wolf ends up a wolf to the core. Even Haru. Why? You were human in the other feasts, right? Can you tell me more about them? Thus, he started talking. He had participated in 2 feasts in the past. This was his 3rd. But as far as he knew, there was another feast before that, which is true, because if we go back to what we learned from Kiyanosuke, there were apparently 4 feasts, including this one, that involved more of the whole supernatural thing. You know, starting from around World War II or so. So, yeah. It happened about 60 years ago, shortly after he was born. The mists came, and many died. It coincided with World War II. Youths from both Kamafujiyoshi and Yasumizu were drafted to the battlefield, so most of the ones who died in the feast were the elderly, women, and children. After that, Yasumizu, which once had dozens of people, quickly deteriorated. Deaths weren't the only cause. Some just fled. I don't know much about that time, but the elders said it wasn't supposed to happen. What do you mean? No idea. They just said that the wolf should have never actually appeared. His explanation was so full of holes that I didn't really understand. However, it seemed like, until the event during the war, the Feast of the Yomi Purge wasn't considered a paranormal event. Most couldn't believe that the Ukami had actually appeared. It shocked everyone. They began to think that they'd angered the mountain. Some of the elderly believed that the Fujiyoshi blood spilled in the war had awakened the wolves. It happened just 60 years ago, but it greatly spread the darkness of the local superstition. Apparently, something that happened in Yasumizu at that time helped, too. Kanzo-san just said that people were killed, but I couldn't tell whether Kanzo didn't know the details or if he found it so detestable he didn't want to say it. Whatever the case, the main topic of conversation happened a while after that. It was the other 2 feasts, the ones that he participated in. He said that there were no mists for a whole 40 years after the feast in the war. The war ended during this time, and though some tried to fix it, Yasumizu was in an awful state. People died, the workforce was lost, poverty became worse, some still living went to work away from home, causing the place to deteriorate even further. However, Kanzo-san felt the main cause of this awful state was a darkness of superstition clouding the locals' hearts. Kanzo-san could remember how, when he was young, everyone just worked the fields of cloth over their faces, constantly afraid of something. These cloths were an item used in the mountain Shinai festival. Their purpose was to prevent eye contact of Yomebito. Though Kanzo-san himself used to keep the sun out of his eyes and to prevent his game from sensing his vision. But at the core, it was an unreasonable tool born of superstition. Anyway, as the village became more and more unreasonable, the mists came. It happened about 15 years ago. At that time, Tei-san and Chiami, who was still in her first year of elementary school, were participating in an event in Kamafujiyoshi, so they ended up avoiding the incident. The two village heads who were in Yasumizu right now weren't here to begin with, while Takumi-san was already an adult working away from home. Haru-chan was just born a year before, and since her parents were on vacation, she'd also avoided the tragedy. They were on a trip away from Yasumizu? With a small child? My son's wife was a teacher from a nearby town. She went back to her parents. I see. I'm impressed you decided to marry someone from out of Yasumizu. She was pretty much an outsider, huh? Some complain about it, especially Teiba. You weren't against it? The opposite. I'd rest easy knowing they could leave Yasumizu at this time of year. It was the only time they ever escaped, though. Anyway, the only ones who had experienced a feast and were still alive were Kanzo-san and the old wolf guy. It was a feast like this one. No one wanted to hang anyone but the first day. Then the wolves killed someone. You had a fake for every guardian receiver. No one trusted anyone. And they voted. Go against the rules and get the corruption. Some tried. They died in the mountains or cause they didn't shelter. This feast killed the Higuchi heir. Aribe's, Yasu's, and Yoshi's dad. I've heard of that. He was killed by the wolves on the first day. He was either wise enough for the wolves to see him as a threat, or they just hated him. Both were likely, but I didn't care about that now. Why would a village head come to Yasumizu? He came here by himself to make a proper watering hole. The Higuchi family fought over who'd get this dirty job. And it coincided with the feast. Was it planned? Many get sent here at the time of the year. You're one too. I see. But wasn't it unusual to invite outsiders at this time of year? That's true. It's also the first time a journal came to Yasumizu. The fact that outsiders were invited at all was way more suspicious than the timing of it. Anyway, about 10 people died in the feast, and Yasumizu lost a third of its population. It was awful. Kanzo-san was just a human without any guardian. Half of the participants were old people who'd either experienced the last feast or were in the war. Naturally, they could make awfully cruel decisions, and some tried to go against the rules, leading to severe punishments at the hands of the corruption. I couldn't do anything. I just hid from the scary stuff and didn't say a thing. The eldest there told me to watch and learn, because I'd be the one running Yasumizu if they died. He got brutalized by the wolves soon after. Well, who were the wolves? We only found out one of the three. But the last one we hanged was a girl about as old as Toru. My son. Remembering it still gives me the chills. As she got the noose on her and fell, that well-behaved girl cursed us with the face of a demon. I knew that feeling well due to my looping, but I couldn't really say it. After that, we finished up the feast. The old fart's been like that back then, too. The old wolf guy. When they came back, I told Teiba, my son, and everyone else that there'd been an accident, and there was nothing to worry about. The little Chi was scared and got all quiet for a while. She even asked me to go with her to the bathroom at night. Takumi came back right after, and Higuchi's wife was sent here with Yasu. She had Yoshi in her. That was the first feast. If I may ask, did something happen to Yasumizu before the feast began? What do you mean? Anything big enough for the village heads to take notice. A few years before that, there'd been an illness here. It was hell. Dozens died, and I was on the verge too. What illness was it? I don't know. Gave everyone bad diarrhea though. Cholera, if you guys remember. Was that relevant? What about the next feast? 8 years ago, after a bad rain, the mist came again. It started after the landslide and the Sato construction site buried some people. I already knew some things about the feast. During it, the children, Taisad and Kiyori-san were in Kamafujiyoshi, and it killed Haru-chan's parents. Gensan, one of the survivors, mentioned something about the badger, and Haru-chan somehow survived the mist. Kanzo-san added more information to that. Takumi-san had been working away from home again, and Kanzo-san was a crow. He was absolutely certain that his son, Taro Makashimashi, was a wolf. My son said he was the crow. Tomiko, his wife, cried as my son and I shouted at each other, saying that the other's a wolf. In the end, there was a vote. He's the one who ended up hanging. He kept saying it until the end. He said he was the real crow and that I was a wolf. There wasn't a bit of lies in his eyes. If I wasn't a crow, I would have believed him. Back then, only the elders voted for him, and it was really close. I almost got hanged. And someone got brutalized that night. And Tomiko, thinking that it was a wolf, tried to kill me at night and got the corruption because she didn't shelter. The next morning, the mist cleared. What? Wait, it cleared though you didn't do anything after the brutalization? Haru-chan's parents' final moments sparked some emotions from me, but I had a comment on that. Wait, was it really a brutalization? Are you sure the wolves didn't mess up and suffer the corruption? No, it was a clean axe kill. How many wolves did you kill until then? Out of the 3 wolves, only my son. I was a crow, so I knew. The mist cleared with 2 wolves still alive? That was supposed to be impossible. The feast rules didn't allow that. Wolves could only die during the day, and since one of them killed someone during the night, the wolves had to be alive. Yet the mist cleared despite that? That was supposed to be impossible. Or maybe it was unnatural to assume that the mist, a natural phenomenon, was directly linked to the feast, a man-made one. If the mist was actually somehow controlled by humans, then maybe it wasn't unlikely for it to clear due to some mistake. It would make sense if that happened this time. It would also explain the Gensan thing. If he'd been a wolf and accidentally survived, it would solve the contradiction of Kanzo-san, a human, still being alive, while a wolf was able to leave that crucial bit of info. If there was a way to control the mist, it probably wasn't linked to the control of the loop. Still, maybe it'd be useful. I keep this in mind. What about Haru-chan? I only know what I heard. She might have entered Yasumizu the evening my son was hanged, but no one saw her. Huh? Wait, the mist cleared after that? The mist cleared after that, right? Had the mist cleared because of God? So, the mist ended there. And I called PQube to help clean up. Then Haru-chan became weird. I told her it was an accident. That her parents got lost in the mist and fell off the cliff. I couldn't say it. I couldn't tell her that her dad was a wolf or that her mom got torn apart. Right? Kanzo-san was unusually talkative. The strange wolf before had made the rough, silent old man reveal things he'd wanted to take to his grave. You were right to do so. Still, the girl lost her parents, so she got weird. Wolf possession, right? Well, that's one thing. She'd also been a good, cheerful girl, and it made her all edgy and selfish. She started wearing those clothes and still carried around that bottle she'd had with her at the time. I'm not sure about that. I don't know about the possession, but I feel like the changes in her behavior and tastes are just in your imagination. Maybe it's only happening because you built a wall between you and her, and she just did the same. Oh, don't act like you know. I do. We're both wolves. I saw glimpses of her true personality. You'd be surprised how honest she is. I'd almost call it greedy. She's a good, honest girl who takes in whatever she hears and matures like the teen that she is. I'd call her talented just for that. I can honestly call her a good girl. A good person. If it weren't for the situation, I'd ask to be in a relationship with her. She's that charming. Then there's you. You were afraid that she might find out the truth, so you distanced yourself from her and refused to give her anything. Right, Kanzo-san? He didn't get mad at me. He just cast his eyes down. This wasn't the energetic, strong hunter I knew, but an old man caught in the throes of regret. What a shame. It was so sad that this would become nothing but a dream. This exchange, that could perhaps remove the wall between the old man and his granddaughter, would be gone. Oh well. I'd have to solve it all anyway. I tried to fix their family relations too. It wasn't necessary for Haruto-chan and I to be wolves for my words to resonate with him. Out of the 3 wolves, only my son. I was a crow, so I knew. She started wearing these clothes and still carried around that bottle she had with her at the time. I also solved a few more mysteries. This was a good time to end it. Now, Kanzo-san, you need to go back. Everyone's worried. Give me your shoulder. I'll take you. What are you saying? Your only choices are killing the wolves or betraying the humans and killing them. That's why you can only kill me, or leave me here and kill everyone else. Right? Huh? I know full well that Haruto-chan is important to you, but so are the others, right? If you kill Kiyori-san, Haruto-chan, and I, you'll win this with minimal casualties. But by vote or by bullet, I'm sure you can do it. The Oribe brothers, Takumi-san, and the elders and the village heads are blameless here. That's why you have to decide right now. Don't act like you care about whether the feast happens today. Well, I know that you'll suffer the corruption if you don't get the others to agree. But I'm sure that you'll choose to massacre either the humans or the wolves, even if it means getting the corruption. Dying for Haruto-chan is an option, and so is killing Haruto-chan, but surviving yourself. And I know you won't pick either option. I don't get it. What are you after? Would the sheep get mad at me if I just said I wanted to die quickly and naturally and move on to the next time? That was the absolute truth. But the thing I really wanted to say now was, Kanzo Makishima-san, I need you to be a good person. Please do what you believe is right. With that done, I closed my eyes. After a long period of hesitation, I heard a metallic sound come from his rifle. His breathing was already steady. He'd made his decision. It'd be bad for me if I just died here and there was no loop. However, I did find it sad that this man's resolve would become nothing but a dream. Grandpas are weak. Oh, that's a title for a trophy. Either way, now we have obtained Key 19, Hunter's Confession. And which number bad ending was this? Number 22. Okay. So basically, we have the 4 keys we need to unlock the one from, I believe it's like all the way in like number 2 or path 2, whatever, the whole thing about the outhouse. So it should be really interesting. Let's listen to the hint corner though. You did it! Yay! Let's sum it up. Killed by Kanzo's first and last shot. The history of Yasumizu was cleared up here, but mostly about the previous 2 feasts. Haru's secret was alluded to as well. This information is necessary to combat the evil that lurks in Yasumizu, but that's a bit of a grueling story. Anyway, if you haven't gone yet, why not try going to... I did that. Uh-huh. And then take a breather, having a nice chat there. Uh-huh. Okay. Yep. So we have to go back to the outhouse. Now that we have everything that we need, I feel like this is going to be a big one. Simply because it was locked behind those numerous locks. And, I don't know. Frankly, now that we know the true history of the feast and how the other 2 feasts were handled, I gotta say, it has to be the old wolf guy, right? I mean, it seems too obvious, but I don't know. By revealing my true self to Kanzo-san, I managed to have a heart-to-heart with him. As a survivor of the 2 previous feasts, the most important thing he told me was the mist cleared even though the feast wasn't over. So it implies 2 things: that the clearing of the mist can't always be perfectly controlled, and second, that there was definitely a wolf who survived the feast in Yasumizu. Also, I may have grasped some hints to the reason why Haru-chan entered Yasumizu 8 years ago and returned alive. Okay. We are literally only missing key 1, which is needed to open up the last path, like in toward the very end with the giant monster. But I think we're going to get it now. So I believe here we go to Dense Mist. And not her objective, but here we are. We were supposed to hide in the outhouse. But what's going to happen now? Look for him? I wonder what they mean by him. At the moment, my head was flooded with information. We've read this numerous times already. Crap. Again? With this timing? At such a chaotic moment? I had lots of things to think about, but that'd be a waste of this loop. Well, I would start by calming down. Chiami-chan. What? You still don't remember? Nice to meet you, Chiami-chan. Oh yeah. Right, I'm late, but nice to meet you, Haruaki-san. Don't make a sound. Stop, I was being serious. Since we started sharing memories every loop, one of us, mostly Chiami, always forgot something, leaving it up to the other to remember. What are you gonna try next? I'm not great at night, as you know. Yeah, no, don't force yourself. I have an idea. Will you come back? Probably not. What are you gonna do? I'm thinking of killing myself right here and now. Man, that's not a good habit to pick up. What if we have it by the time everything's solved? Yeah, it's not a good trend. I'll try whatever I can. Sorry, what'll you try? Making a move on Yasukun, maybe? Go right ahead. Are you mad? No, it'd be weird if I was. Yeah, of course. That was a joke. I wouldn't do that. I see. See you later. This was the conversation. Had I been attacked just now? Wait, what was the... Hold on. Was that a typo? Had I been attacked, I attacked just now. Okay. I was wondering. I was like, oh man, I can't read. It was no big deal. I could easily control my feelings toward other people. Man, why was I so mad? Because you still got feelings. I needed to get a hold of myself. I was now by myself. What was there for me to do? I just remembered. I tried to solve that problem. Though it probably wouldn't be a solution. But if I didn't try, I felt like there'd be a trap waiting for me when I least expected it. And so, I went to the north of Yasumizu. The thicket near the graveyard was where that person supposedly lived. Naturally, it was empty. Then again, not much time had passed since the mist came. I hid in a bush not far away and watched the dwelling as the mists covered it. Just as I expected the corruption to come after me, there he is. Forget it. He showed up. The old man who cried wolf. He'd done some strange things over the loops, but always ended up dying. I'd assumed that his senility was just an act, but I still didn't know the truth. Though I'd gained some more reasons to suspect him recently. I'd love to expose him for who he was. I continued holding my breath and watching him. Apparently in the hut, he was carrying around a lot of dirty cloth bags. I saw it from behind the shabby wall here. The state of the place was all the reasons I suspected him. Could this place, which had more holes in it than the outhouse, really be used for sheltering? Over the many loops, I realized that there was two primary dangers here in Yasumizu. One was the bringers of corruption, as God said, the rabid dogs. And then there were the werewolf-like creatures that were probably Great Lord Shinai's servants. You could beat the former, but not the latter. Normally, the dogs upheld the order of the night. But if the rule-bringers dealt with the dogs, that thing appeared, killed the rule-breakers, and set things straight. I hadn't expected that thing. I hadn't escaped that thing once so far. The dogs would definitely kill you if you slept in a place so damaged, and that was another thing I found suspicious about him. As it turned out, he really didn't have any intention of staying in his house. Yasumizu was deathly quiet, so it wasn't a good situation to try and tail him in. I had a feeling any rustling I made by moving around would tip him off. Still, I couldn't just watch him leave. Ugh, whatever. I just trusted he couldn't hear that far. Even so, I got on all fours and followed him, careful not to step on any leaves or loose twigs. I climbed over a collapsed Okiba too, and I could only hope that wouldn't mean I was cursed or something. Well, if I was, I felt like God would have punished me by now. Weren't we outside of Yasumizu by now? The Yasumizu area was like a scar cut from the land, surrounded by cliffs. Was it okay as long as we didn't cross a cliff? In that case, I really should have looked into the overgrown area a bit more. There were still many things I could try. It wasn't a time to despair. But damn, the old wolf guy seemed to know exactly where he was going. Was his hideout nearby? That sound. Is that water? Was there a river here? I looked around to find the source of the sound. It felt like it was straight ahead. There was a river in Yasumizu? Wait, where did he go? It was pretty dark right now. Had I just lost sight of him? But I should have still been able to hear him walking around. Did he suddenly vanish? Though, if he could actually do that, it'd explain a lot of things about him. I had to find him. Carefully, though. I couldn't forget that he killed Mochi once. What if he'd already noticed me and was walking into an ambush? That wasn't the case. He just wasn't here. I had to find him. No way. There were two main things I found out as I walked around this area. There were no people here, and the sounds of water were coming from below. Apparently, there was an underground waterway beneath here, When I stomped on the ground, it made a hollow sound. It was probably used for the paddy fields. Water came here from the settlement above and flowed out into Saranaga. It must have been dug a long time ago, but it was still in use today. Or perhaps this place was inhabited before. Wait, even if they could get drinking water from the wells, paddy fields needed a richer source of water, didn't they? What was its source? Again, there was no river in Yasumizu. It only had little ponds. The documents from the Sato mansion mentioned that Yasumizu had its waters carried via irrigation from Kamafujiyoshi. Was this it? In that case, it was a pretty major piece of property. How did they maintain it? Even if it was buried underground, didn't it get blocked every now and then? Would it be possible for there to almost be no people going in and out of it? About the wolf guy's disappearance. Could he have entered a waterway? If there was some sort of secret entrance here and he went through it when I wasn't looking. It was already dark out, so I took out a flashlight from my bag and pointed it at the surface. The dogs would arrive soon. I had to find it before then. Is this it? There's a patch of ground that was higher than the rest. It could easily be mistaken for just an irregularity in the terrain. But if it wasn't... I put my finger in and felt something made of stone inside. It felt like someone was messing with the ground here daily. Wasn't this open if I turned it around? I did it. The stone plate that covered the waterway was lighter than expected. I could now hear the water clearly. This waterway was unexpectedly large. A single person could easily walk through it if they crouched a bit. Had the old wolf guy gone through here as well? Even if he hadn't, surviving the night by hiding here would be a new thing for me. I could try it. Flashlight in mouth, I went inside. I returned the plate, though. I didn't know if the dogs would come after me, but I could probably fool the thing. And in I went. It'd be completely dark here if I didn't have my flashlight. The water here was only about 3 centimeters deep, but the flow was pretty fast. There seemed to be lots of stones on the bottom. It was unexpectedly well designed. The hard surface made it impossible to slip, but it'd be pretty dangerous for me here if the current got any faster. I'd be carried straight to Saranaga. It'd be a water slide of death. I had to start by searching in the opposite direction. The waterway slightly curved as I continued walking. I could breathe normally, but the tunnel was extremely claustrophobic. Where was I right now? I walked 100 or so steps, so I had to be at least under the plaza. Well, suddenly I realized something. The flow had stopped? The water that had been flowing below me was just a small trickle now. There had been a decent flow coming from up ahead. Had someone stopped it? I had a bad feeling about this. It was night. If someone was controlling the water, it couldn't have been someone from Yasumizu. I tried pushing up, but nothing happened. The stone plate from before was the only place I could move. Also, going to the surface at this time meant certain death at the hands of the wolves. I had to continue. As I pressed on, the dry tunnel began to widen. I could walk normally now. It was a large underground passage that they created by digging through bedrock. Like I expected, there was a major irrigation setup here. As I thought that, I saw a tunnel to the side. It started at about waist level. Even if the water was running, it wouldn't flow in there. I felt like I could crawl inside, but for now, I just tried going forward. There were more and more tunnels at the sides. The main waterway became more complex, with 90-degree angles and steps and stuff. When I got When I got on a waist-high step and took a break, I heard a sound. It was coming from far away ahead. It was familiar to me. The sound of claws on heavy floor. Ragged breathing. Growls full of uncontainable bloodlust. The feeling that there was a pack nearby. Dogs! Crap! What can I do here? Will I enter a tunnel? I looked inside a tunnel and I lit it up with my flashlight. I couldn't see anything inside. No. There were dogs in there too. Was there no safe space here? I had no choice but to run back. That was when...
What's wrong?
That voice!
Youngin, lost?
I directed a flashlight to the source of the voice.
Bright!
In one of the tunnels about as high as my waist, the old wolf guy looked at me as the light made him cover his eyes. Sorry. Are you okay? It's dangerous here.
It's safe here. It's safe here. He said that in the dining hall, and I was confused.
This is the most safe place. That's why I'm here. Really?
You'll die if you stayed there, though.
I knew it. Please help. Please help me.
Come in.
The old man turned around and crawled deeper in the tunnel. I was supposed to follow him, huh? I felt like I was getting close to the truth. There were many beasts beside me. I gulped and, tense as all hell, crouched and entered a hole. I had to crawl for about a minute while lighting up the old guy's ass like we were in some theme park attraction.
There we go.
With those words, he entered a larger space. I followed after him. It was a room. Neither large nor small. It was about the size of 4.5 tatami mats. It seemed to be made of wood. The humidity in here had made everything moldy. It looked like antique workmanship to me. I crawled inside. Once I stepped in, I felt something other than rock under my feet. It was really unstable. Confused, I tried to use my flashlight to see, but that was when the wolfman lit a match. A match? He used it to light up a lamp. That made the place bright. I finally realized that this place was like a literal dump. There were pieces of cloth, vinyl bags, and plastic bottles filled with liquids I didn't want to know about. The entire floor was covered in such things, and we were walking on them. This had to be the place where he slept. As I looked around, the wolfman pushed me away from the entrance.
One, two.
Then, he pushed a heavy-looking stone object back over the door, shutting us in with a heavy thud.
We're safe now. Safe. Sit.
I didn't want to, but I had no choice. He went deeper in and sat down on a pile of garbage, and so I did the same. I felt myself sink into the floor.
Eat? Eat. Here.
He took something out from the cloth bag he brought and extended it to me. It was a bread roll inside a plastic bag. Specifically, one made by the most famous makers of the stuff. You can get this anywhere. However, it was weird to see it in Yasumizu. It was a settlement detached from the outside economy, so it didn't fit it at all. Yet this place seemed to have tons of such stuff. I'll have it then. I looked at the surface of the bag. It was made less than half a month ago. It wasn't even past its best before date. Where did you get it?
Eat, and drink this.
He gave me a cracked teacup. In it, there was a transparent liquid. What is this? Drink! What is this? Booze! Oh, damn, okay. I took it and smelled it. I wasn't sure about it. It did seem like alcohol, but I wasn't too sure what to think of the little bug in there. Ugh. I didn't mind drinking it. But I had to make my position clear. Thank you for helping me. I came here to talk to you. Drink! You act like you don't know anything, but you do, right? Huh? I came here to ask about the Feast of the Yomi Purge. Huh? You survived the previous feasts. I want to ask you about that. Drink! Okay. I gulped down the content of the teacup. Ugh! It was rotten, but I was able to gulp it down without vomiting. Thank you, old wolf guy. Or should I call you the main culprit behind the 20 murderous Fujiyoshi break-ins? Oh! They never caught the guy. I thought... Wait, I'm getting confused then. I thought they said it captured some other dude and he got killed. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Oh, okay. Ooh! Oh, I don't like how he looks. So you know that, eh, youngin'? I knew it. According to the info in the Sato mansion, the murder incident was concluded with a trial and execution of the self-admitted culprit. It wasn't based on a thorough examination of the circumstances. One of the largest murder sprees in Japan's history was said to have been done in about half an hour and with only a kitchen knife. People of that time questioned this as well, but the confession took precedence above all. It was considered enough evidence to deliver the punishment. I couldn't really blame them, though. It was a time of chaos, what with the war and all. However, if you considered the idea that there was multiple culprits, some things made more sense. Due to the distance and difference in quality of life, the people of Kamafujiyoshi didn't know much about Yasumizu and what kind of people lived there. And there was also the fact that the supposed murderer, Kihei Tochitani, wasn't mentioned in Kamafujiyoshi at all until he turned himself in. That meant that witnesses in Kamafujiyoshi hadn't known about what Yasumizu's people were up to. When the police went to Yasumizu to investigate it after the confession, the people only said things that supported the idea that he'd done it. This meant the people of Yasumizu weren't aware of these actions, and that those who weren't suspected could easily have been complicit in it. The old wolf guy had been considered not of sound mind for a long time, so he'd been ignored. That hadn't changed even now, and it had gotten to the point that no one cared if he just vanished into thin air for no apparent reason. Considering his character alongside the timing of the incident, he had been in his 30s then, and his mental state was just an act, I could easily conclude that he was the type of man who could commit murder. He was the true evil hiding in Yasumizu, a serial murderer who escaped divine punishment and survived. Did the Migaruba finally come to get me? Not now, no, that'd be weird. You don't know jack about this tunnel, eh? I don't get you. You a cop or something? Huh? I'm someone who wants to stop the Feast of the Yomi Purge. Stop? Stop? Oh no, ain't that brave? You want to fight the Migaruma, huh? Damn fool. I know the Migaruma are directly responsible for the feast, and that this won't be easy. I'm not here to expose your past crimes. I just need your opinion. You're someone who broke the laws of both Yasumizu and Fujiyoshi collectively, after all. He went quiet. And... that ain't fun for me at all. He made an expression that was new to me. a display of unconcealed malice. What? The next moment, I heard a sound behind me and turned around.
They're here.
It was the sound of claws scratching on the boulder covering the entrance. It was accompanied by growls. The bringers of the corruption.
You know that much and you still came here? I don't get ya.
He probably wouldn't understand if I told him that I had nowhere else to go. You plan to avoid a situation by closing yourself in like this?
I'm safe right now. I just eat, sleep, and don't have a care in the world. If the feast comes, I'll just play around and hide here. I ain't uncomfortable. Not one bit.
He intentionally twisted his laughter as his shoulders shook. You'd be uncomfortable if people found out about the crime, wouldn't you? Also, why are you so confident that it's safe here? You think you can hide from the Amigurumi for long?
Hide? You don't know shit, do ya? The Amigurumi already know about me. You know about the eye of the Amigurumi? Then why'd you ask? Well, you're trying to bait me, huh?
He was right. This guy was even sharper than I imagined. I'd already confirmed that Amigurumi had a surveillance network spanning all of Yasumizu. There were these tunnels too. The scratching dogs behind me made it clear that they were commencing the feast. In that case, there was no way they didn't see this place. That meant that they knew about this man who was hiding underground. Hell, the fact that he'd been given a role of the Badger made it clear that he was involved in the feast. His situation wasn't like mine for the first time, when the Amigurumi simply didn't see me and didn't put me in the feast. There could have only been one answer to this. The Amigurumi know about you and use you for the feast, but they are trying to take your life. Is that because your death would be bad for them?
You talk good, huh? When you're my age, even that makes me jealous.
Can you answer me?
Sure. Sleepiness ain't coming yet.
Well now. I silently prepared myself. His story could be summed up like this. He was indeed the culprit. A serial killer who killed about 10 people in the incident back in the 1940s. However, the one who had the idea was Tochitanishi, the one who'd get executed. Tochitanishi was a Kamafujiyoshi person sent to Yasumizu, and though he wasn't a violent sort, being sent to Yasumizu left a deep-seated grudge. He constantly grumbled about it and couldn't get used to life here no matter what. He was an outcast to everyone except the old wolf guy. Tochitanishi often told him on the outskirts of Yasumizu that he'd get back at Kamafujiyoshi eventually.
So I threw fuel on the fire. I told him to do whatever he wants and all that.
If that'd really been all he'd done, then Tochitani would have been pretty murderous to begin with. It was bad enough that he actually went through with his feeble-minded friend's idea. Anyway, that led to the plan, if you could call it that, to kill as many Kamafujiyoshi people as possible. Now, on the day it was time to kill, the old wolf guy was giving Tochitani lots of divine sake he'd stolen from the hall. Once they were drunk, they both covered themselves in Saranaga's mud and moved out. I asked if he had something to do with the Fushiyoshi myths, and the answer was yes. It matched what I'd learned in the Nasato Mansion, that the origin of Yamabita legends was the Yasumizu rebels. The old wolf guy was probably the reason why an ex-Kamafujiyoshi person found out about Yasumizu's legends so quickly. Anyway, Tochitani, still drunk and looking like a Yomabito, began the massacre. The old wolf guy, covered in mud himself, secretly watched as he stole valuables from the places. He mentioned that the burglary was his main objective. Since he didn't want to leave any evidence and wanted to make it seem like the massacre was the goal, he only took the bills from wallets, as well as various envelopes. I had a hard time deciding whether using a mass murder to get rich was subtle or blunt. Though, at that moment, something he didn't expect happened.
It was damn good. Everyone who saw us was so scared they pissed themselves and fell. No one resisted one bit. So I figured I'd try to kill them. It'd be all his fault after all. That's the human thing to think, right? I had a good time there, youngin'.
No comment. The fact that no one resisted was related to the absolute loyalty and the faith that Nasato looked into. The God problem. Anyway, he went on to kill over a dozen people, steal lots of valuables, and escape before things escalated. As he watched off the mud, returned to his place, and looked through the spoils, he found something really noteworthy. It was a piece of paper he found inside an envelope with money. He quickly understood what it meant, and it was huge. Tochitanishi escaped, turned himself into the police in Tokyo, claiming it was all his own doing, and the story ended with the execution.
He was small and petty. He must have realized that he'd done what he'd done after he sobered up. He did have the guts to run, though.
However, while the national reports on the serial killing subsided, things had started to change within Fujiyoshi. The village heads and their associates had begun visiting Yasumizu more and more often, and, for unknown reasons, more and more people were sent to Yasumizu. And a while later, a real feast of the Yomi Purge began. The old wolf guy hadn't participated in many conversations in Yasumizu, so he only found this out during the first feast. Apparently, the Miguruma had been acting shady, and it was because they were searching for something. The something was stolen from one of the murder scenes. They talked that it might have been something necessary for their rituals, like a talisman or something. They'd even speculated the Okami returned because it was lost. As the rumor mill churned, the old wolf guy was the only one who knew the truth. It was the thing he'd found, and it was something that'd be bad for the Miguruma. What was it?
A copy of a human trafficking contract.
Human trafficking? But that wasn't so uncommon back then.
It wasn't, but still, no one knew that the Miguruma were buying people.
What do you mean?
The people they brought aren't anywhere, and there's no job for them to do. What do you think happened to them, huh?
They used them for the messed up rituals and experiments.
You know your stuff. I don't know the details, but it wasn't something they wanted others to know about. Families like the Miguruma don't want that kind of stuff made public. That's why they started the farce of a feast. I knew that, and so I wasn't scared one bit.
That meant the old wolf guy was the only one who knew the phenomenon that started it all were just a Miguruma conspiracy. It'd been bad for them the scandal spread throughout Fujiyoshi. It could potentially undermine both the local faith and their influence. They frantically debated how to preserve their secret and with it, their authority. If you looked at it from a certain angle, it was to prevent another Yomibito rebellion. So the main cause of this was basically God again. I saw how it was now. Anyway, the old wolf guy knew the truth. Thus, he'd use his guile, got into the target's heads, and tried to figure out what they were doing. That was how he found this waterway.
Everyone knows that this waterway is underground, but it belongs to Kamo Fujiyoshi. They just loan it out. So no one in Yasumizu knew what kind of thing this was. Didn't even think about it. Those who did find it ended up killed. But I prepared for that.
That was the core of the matter. He'd somehow established contact with the Miguruma and told them that he had the contract and that he'd go public if he died. If they didn't want that, they had to ensure his safety. He used the info as a hostage to protect himself. It was an action movie plot, but could it work in real life? Fujiyoshi was a small village. If he asked someone here to reveal the truth if he died, they could just take care of that person too. I asked about that and he said, that he had a contact in Tokyo. This was when I found out that he wasn't born in Yasumizu. It was probably like the me who tried to move the Yasumizu. He'd arrived here as a drifter and got sent here. He was pure evil. A scumbag who'd come here just to deceive people and commit terrible acts. Anyway, the villains in the Prey Village met to create a villainous pact. Every year, he went outside the village and secretly reached out to his contact in Tokyo. If he didn't show up even once, his contact would reveal the Miguruma's secret to the public. And if they didn't want that, they had to keep him alive. Of course, I had questions. What would happen if the wolf guy died a natural death? And if the Miguruma became unable to hear their end of the deal because their leader changed or something? In response to that, he said that it was a battle of wits. The Miguruma weren't actually certain that the old wolf guy's death would mean that their secret would come out. They probably didn't think that his weapon had survived a whole 60 years and made it into the modern era. Also, it was a question whether such an old scandal would deal much damage to the modern Miguruma. They were still afraid of the worst-case scenarios, though. To allay their fears and buy more time, they left the old man alive. It was a small price to pay for the feeling of safety. If it cost anything more, though, he'd have been removed a long time ago. Old Wolf Guy's own words. It showed a skill at negotiating particular to villains, and he was proud of it. I see. So you can enter this place because you're on a secret contract with the Masters of the Feast. And you can do things against the laws of the Feast because the corruption won't apply to you. Is that how it is? Interesting, ain't it? You're the only one I ever told it to. He whispered that, then drank some rotten booze. How was I to process this? That it was possible to negotiate with the Miguruma? No way. Like he said, his deal was only accepted because of how small a price they were paying. They'd never agreed to stop the Feast of the Yomi Purge. They wouldn't tolerate my goal. I could only achieve it by making an enemy of them. In fact, stopping the Feast wasn't even my ultimate goal at this point. That meant that this time, the only thing I'd gain was physical protection in the form of the underground waterway. Oh, there was another thing. I realized I couldn't let my guard down around this person. That was good enough for me. So, when will it start working? Huh? I mean, the booze you gave me was poison, right? What are you on about? Don't play dumb. Keeping you safe is cheap? As if. You're an insane villain who can break the deal at any moment. No normal villain will just let you be. Such exchanges normally involve a mediator of sound mind and end without anyone feeling wronged. And there has to be another reason why they kept you alive. Such as something that made your life beneficial to their projects. For example, you could have been assigned to take care of anyone who saw things they shouldn't have or went somewhere they didn't belong. Having cameras wasn't enough. You also needed an on-site operator to dole out punishments. Otherwise, you'd have to send out people every time it happened. And it was better if less people knew about these dark happenings. In that case, it was best to leave the protection of the secret to Yasumizu's traitor. Basically, he was... There's no poison. It's just something that nubbin for whoever's not used to it. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't feel my legs. And it wasn't because I had been sitting for too long. As I tried not to let it show on my face, he started rummaging through the garbage. Oh. Well, I'll get at it later. He took out something I could never forget. It was the mask piece of the wolf outfit. After tossing it aside, he put his hand in another mountain of trash and took out something else. It was a dagger.
Youngin, you're like me. That's a face of a villain. You see stuff, you know stuff. You must have pulled some shit outside. And now you escaped because you're bored? You remind me of me when I was a youngin.
Oh, how I wanted him to spare me that shit.
Give up, though. I'm enough for this village.
He was right.
Anyway, time for my first kill in 8 years.
You were a wolf 8 years ago, weren't you?
That was fun.
How many wolves did you kill? That remember, he only did 1 out of the 3. And then they stopped the mist because of this douchebag. In the feast 8 years ago, the mist had cleared with only one of the wolves dead. If Gensen, the one who knew about the badger, was 1, the third one had to be around 2. It wasn't guaranteed that it was the old wolf guy, but as it turned out, the truth was always the worst possible option. One more question.
Huh.
Have you met God? He had to have. It didn't matter that he was an outsider. Even Kiyori-san, who come here from Tohoku, had been affected by it. He couldn't have been an exception to that. If he really was a scumbag like me, admitting that he submitted to a god must have been extremely humiliating for him. He didn't reply. This is God's garden. If you're that smart, you could have escaped far away from here. You have no future. I hope that my words would help me get back at him a little. I didn't want to lose completely this time. But... ugh. That's an image I didn't want to take a look at, but let's take a look at it more. You got a little pot belly going on there, buddy. Okay. Well, who would have thunk it? I mean, it was one of those things where, like, it's kind of cliche. That's like, oh, the senile old man, there's no way he could be it, but actually it is him. So, well, if I'm understanding this correctly, are they saying that he was the wolf thing that they saw before and, like, from the corruption? How come, but I don't understand how that thing always killed them, but they were able to get past the dogs. If he's human, they could easily take him down, right? I feel like I'm missing something here. He laughed.
Listen, youngin. This ain't God's garden, but my fortress. Run whatever you want, but there's no safer place than your own fortress. You need a fortress for protection. Things haven't changed since samurai times. It's people that don't get that, who's scared of stuff you can't see. Like God.
Then, the numbness is starting to get to my lips. You were never afraid of God?
God ain't scary.
There was no fakery in his words.
Anything made by people can be killed.
He said that, and swung down the blade.
You said I ain't got a future, eh? I'm 95. Hearing shit about the future from a youngin' that's about to die just makes me laugh.
Oh. He had a point. I'd really underestimated him. He was right. You needed a place for protection. And then there was his idea that you could kill God. His serpentine wisdom had let him survive for several decades all by himself. He really was pure evil. The evil I discovered many loops ago was incomparable to him. He was a true villain. Well, I really didn't mind what happened here. His fate was to die at the hands of Chiami or Kanzo-san, one of the foolish Yasumizu people he looked so down upon. I had no reason to tell him that. But it really was humiliating to die at the hands of such a cartoonish villain. cold sake and water. And with that, we have unlocked key number 1, the final key of the game, which is going to unlock the final path of the game, I assume. Holy crap. And with that, I'm assuming this is bad ending 1? It sure is. Let's watch the hint corner. You did it, Chief! Yeah, this was the hardest key to get. With this, you've all but won. Old Man Rant's death. You finally filled in the 0-1 spot that's been blank since the start. You're almost done, man. Oh, what a refined system. This time around, the veil of mystery surrounding that old man for so long was finally lifted. It was suspected he wasn't actually senile for a while, but here we finally got confirmation. But damn, turns out he was a real hell of a bad guy deep down. But it seems Haruaki found an important idea in exchange for his life. Well, it's a pretty worthless idea, though. And with that, you now have the 5 final keys, provided you did this in order. For those who don't, go here and get the final key. Then, once you have them all, go to despair. There, go for the answer other than despair. Though I guess it's all kinds of weird for me to say that, considering my main story self is gonna flip a lid. Well, I'm an interface character, so cut me some slack here. Oh man. So, ladies and gentlemen, this actually might be Hello, wait a minute. Wait, we're not done yet. What is this? As I was looping back, I actively thought to myself for the first time. It seemed that was enough. It seemed the plan had finally come together. At the end of the long, long loop, I saw a brilliant light. All that was left was to meet with that person. And well, wait, meet with who though? Well, wait a minute. I'm trying to think back because if you guys remember in the despair portion, the final part, the only one who's still alive technically, or of course it's ourselves and Miko, but also Rikako. And I know there's so many aspects of this that are now can be explained that are not paranormal, but some stuff really still does seem paranormal. I still want to know how the hell Chiami crumbled to death multiple times. I want to know the whole thing about Rikako having the powers that she does, apparently. Unless I'm looking into it wrong, I'm a little bit confused. Anyway, well, next time, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna go to the final thing here. The final aspect is despair. We have all the keys, and actually, oops, let's see what they say about key number 1. The old man who cried wolf turned out to be the killer behind the Fujiyoshi murder 60 years ago. He colluded with the Amiguruma to assist with the progression of the Feast of the Yomi Purge. Behavior aside, I learned some things from the pure evil that dwells within him. First of all, I'll need a fortress in order to survive. And most importantly, the concept that God can be killed. I mean, so yeah, there's that. Unless I'm mistaken, there's a whole idea of with Rikako, with her powers, and this whole thing about God. I might be a little bit still confused about that, but regardless, it's very possible that the next episode could be the finale. But I say that, but I'm still not entirely sure if we're going to be fully done because I've heard that there's bonus stuff, but I'm not sure how much there is or how long it's going to take. And frankly, I'm kind of going back and forth if I even want to do that or not. So I have no idea how long this is going to take too. I mean, sure, we have all the keys that we need to open up the final path, but how long is the story going to take, right? So, I don't know. But this has definitely been interesting, to say the least. I guess we'll see what happens. So, as usual, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time for Let's Play Raging Loop. Love you all so much. Have a great day.